Two non-SEC teams played for the national championship Monday night, and the way they got there should feel familiar to anyone who's watched this sport for the last 20 years. Indiana and Miami, both built the same way that great SEC teams of the last 20 years were built. They won in the trenches. They ran the football. They created explosives. They had experience. So tonight we're not debating conferences. We're talking about the blueprint, because the road Indiana and Miami took, it had an SEC look to it. Welcome back to the SEC Gauntlet. I'm your host, Jason Watkins from Hall of Fame College Football. With me is Big Cuz Marcus Dent from 365, the Gridiron Insight. And if you love college football in the SEC, you know you're in the right place. So before you forget, smash that red subscriber button, like our videos, and don't forget to ring the notification bell on every channel so you don't miss a moment of the SEC Gauntlet.
Yes, sir.
Marcus Dent, welcome back to the show, my friend. How are we doing?
Man, what's going on, man? I tell you what, it's been a rough couple of days, man. Rough couple of days.
You guys been busy, man, over there at Ole Miss 365, bro.
Man, it's been a rough couple of days, man. You got a lot. Hey, man, I just got to take my hat off to David Johnson and his writing crew, man, and everybody over there at Ole Miss 365. They're doing a heck of a job, and it's just it's a blessing to be able to do football.
I tell you what, yeah. I feel you.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely, man. But man, hey, look,
the season went so fast, man, and it kind of hit me this week. We're sitting there watching a fantastic national championship game. By the way, it sucks that you didn't have an SEC team in it, but great game.
Definitely.
And something that I noticed, both of this team. I mean, the more I've thought about it, everybody's talking about the SEC this, SEC that. We're not going to debate conferences tonight, but more you looked at it, and you're seeing. You're not playing finesse football. That had nothing to do with it. You're not, there's structure to both of these teams. They're built with that same formula that you've seen from
the blueprint.
LSU. Yeah, the blueprint. Georgia, Alabama, Saban's Alabama team. Obviously, physical offensive line, disruptive defensive fronts, efficient quarterback play, and number one, and probably most important, experience.
Experience.
They don't have the same amount of depth.
Let's talk about that. So the team that I want to go back to is Michigan.
Okay.
It took Harbaugh about 6 years to build that team.
Yeah.
And he asked those guys come back one more year. And if you go look at the age, I'm not quite sure, but if you go look at the age of those guys, I guarantee you, those guys were, they were 23 years old or more.
Yeah,
I can promise you that
they were, and so. A lot of those guys, you talk about Blake Corum. A lot of the defensive guys were older, especially in the back end and along that defensive front, which that's where they won, right? Was in the trenches. And if you're watching look, I believe that. I don't want to break the game down completely, but I felt like Miami definitely gave up an opportunity with their offensive line to kind of dominate that game. And they only ran the ball 20 times, but
yeah.
But in view of the fact that they were just so big there and so strong and able to push them around a little bit, but they kind of got away from it pretty quick. What we saw from Indiana, though, and Miami on the other side of the ball, on the defensive end, those lines were doing work all year long. You're not putting up a bunch of points on them. Most teams were not running the football on them very well. They were disruptive to their opposing quarterback. You saw that happen, especially the longer the game went on in the national championship game as well. But Curt Cignetti built a football team in the image of one of those Alabama teams that he was an assistant on.
Well, Alabama back in the day was able to stack talent on top of talent. And so when these guys second and third year came around, man, they were old vets.
That's right.
Nobody's thinking about that right now. You know, so what? So what?
That's what that
Well,
experience means, though,
yeah,
right? And so
yeah,
you've got
that's
a bunch of
exactly
guys
what
at
it means.
Indiana
So
that have a
if you
ton of
if
experience. Yeah.
yeah, if you got those type guys like Michigan had, and the guys that Saban had that they were experienced, that's the same team Indiana just displayed. That is
Well,
the same team they displayed.
Marcus, Ohio State was the same way last year. They did the same thing in 2024 where they
Yeah.
got a bunch of those dudes on the defensive line to come back. There are a bunch of guys they would have been top 3 round guys already. They were
Hmm.
able to they paid a big amount of money. Remember they talked about it that they spent $30 million in NIL to make sure that they got those guys to come back for one more go around.
Right.
Of course they added Caleb Downs. Of course they added Quinshawn Judkins. Of course they added, the quarterback, Will Will Howard.
Well,
We know they
but
added
look,
those dudes, but they also had and those are guys that also had experience, right?
exactly. So the thing about it is the pieces they added were third, fourth year guys.
Yep.
Those were guys that were very experienced, and I think right now the SEC teams are going to have to figure out how do we get that experience. Do we go and spend our money on a 5-star kid, an 18-year-old kid, or do we go take a 4 or 5 fifth-year kid who is experienced and is more mature? Do we take that kid or do we go pay for the 5-star?
See, and I think that this is where you're starting to get the conversation is I mean, this is where I think that the conversation is being had around the wrong things. I think that what we're talking about right here is social media being what it is, you're going to get what you get off of that, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of what it is. But that being said, when you start hearing a bunch of the stuff that you hear on social media, it's like which conference is better and which at the moment, like the best teams in the conference, and we're gonna get into our post portal SEC power rankings here in just a few minutes. But what a lot of people were talking about is, okay, well, this team, whatever. Well, okay, we talked about Indiana being an average age of 23. The Green Bay Packers are an average age of 25. So that's right up there, right? So we're talking about that. But if you look at Georgia hasn't been a huge portal player, right? They've done most of their developing from and adding some guys, but they haven't had to add as much because Kirby Smart, they're able to keep most of their guys around. At least defensively, they haven't had a hard time with that. Some of their offensive weapons and stuff, they've, it's kind of hit and miss.
Yeah, go back and look at Georgia's. When the last time they won it? 2022.
2022 was their last one. Now that's one of the best, and that's one of the greatest defenses that on paper you've ever seen, right?
I guarantee you, the average age was at least 22.
Oh, easy.
Years of age.
No doubt about it. They were a bunch of guys that were. There weren't many guys. I wanted to say, maybe what was that safety that he just left 2 years? Is it Fields, Malachi Fields, or
I can't remember who you're talking about, but yeah.
But anyway, I'm just saying they didn't have a lot of youth there. They had a bunch of guys that were. A bunch of early first round type dudes on the D line. Obviously they had look, their quarterback for both of them championships he walked on to Georgia, went to JUCO, came back to Georgia. He'd been playing football for a long time. Stetson Bennett was an old head.
Yeah, he was an old head, man. He was an old head. You look at Miami.
Yeah.
Miami was full of 4-year guys. Look at the quarterback.
Yeah. Year 6 for Carson Beck.
Right. So, man, so my question is, Jason, does the Mississippi States and I won't say Vanderbilt, because I know Vanderbilt has they've been doing pretty good. Got the number 1 quarterback in the country. But what about these schools in the middle of the pack in the SEC? Kentucky, can they get better by going out and getting the older guys instead of getting the top 4 and 5-star kids? Is that the way they become real competitive?
Yeah, I think so.
Because I don't think you have to spend a lot of money on guys that are looking for a shot.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This is the question that you have to ask yourself if you're a program, right? Do you spend money on development kids because you don't know what you're going to develop them in? There's a couple of things that I feel about this, but I'll just say this. Do you spend money on a kid that's coming out of high school that you think is a 5-star? and trust in your and trust that you're going to be able to develop that 5-star talent or whatever it may be? Or do you go and look at a guy that he's already shown that he can play pretty well, or he's looking for a shot, but he's already been in a program, he's ready to contribute, and you go build it that way? Now, what I tell you about Indiana guys, a lot of those dudes, he got them to stay around, but he also got guys that, you talk about Coogan that came over from Notre Dame. This is a really good lineman. He was the MVP in the Rose Bowl. Look, obviously it was important for them to do what they did on the offensive line, for them to run the ball the way they did, because Indiana ran the football and did it. You were talking about a commitment to running the ball. That was it, right?
Oh, that kid, he ran hard, man.
Oh, bro. He ran they're hard. Opening holes for the dude. You know what I mean?
But he broke tackles too, man. That's one of the hardest runners I've seen.
Oh man, he's fun to watch.
In a long time.
Fun to watch. Yeah,
he's fun to watch. And like I said, Kentucky. How does Kentucky get back to 9 to 10 wins? How does Mississippi State get back to 9 to 10 wins?
Okay.
How does Auburn get back to 9 to 10 wins?
Well, Kentucky and Mississippi State, I think, are a little different. Obviously Jeff Lebby is an offensive guy. Their defense hasn't been very good. They go and get Zach Arnett, who was their last head coach, but before that, defensive coordinator under Mike Leach. They need to rebuild that defense to be serviceable. When you look at what Kentucky is, they brought in a Will Stein to give them an offense that they hadn't had in the last few years under Mark Stoops. But are you able to hold that defense together? So, I think that Will Stein is a fantastic. I mean, he's had 3 straight Heisman finalists.
Yeah.
At quarterback, I think that they go and add a guy like Nick Anderson from LSU and formerly Oklahoma.
But he doesn't have the money that he had. Will is not going to have that type of money.
That's true. But he can also, but I feel like Will's the type of guy, he's worked at UTSA before with Jeff Traylor, guys like that. This is the kind of coach that he's going to be able to identify guys that maybe they haven't gotten their opportunity yet.
Ho. You said the key word, identification. I think Kirk Stignetti, I think his biggest upside was identifying talent.
Sure.
And that's what I wanted to get to. I was waiting for you to come that way. You have to identify talent. And you can take a kid that's coming in out of high school as a 2-star, but when he got in the portal, he was a 4. That's what they got on that team.
Sure.
Because he know how to identify talent. It's not about what On3 says. It's not about what 24/7 Sports says. It's not about what Rival says. Trust your evaluation of these kids. You want kids that are,
which is that was the age-old question I was talking about, Marcus.
That's what I'm saying.
Do you want to go and get somebody that you feel like is developed or not developed, or do you want to get them out of high school and believe that you can develop them?
I say you still have to have high school kids.
Anyway, if you can identify talent at both levels, you're probably going to be in great shape. But identification is that being able to pick them out and identify talent is certainly it's, if it ain't number one in the most important, it's 1A. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think
you have to be able to pay though too. I think that some of those guys, the high price dudes. You got listen, in the SEC and the Big Ten. I don't want to hear they can't afford it because we know better.
Well, Jason, here's the deal. They can afford it, but there's levels to that thing, bro.
Of course.
It is okay. You're gonna get your stipend money, your rev share money. That's what I meant to say. But then you got these collectives. It's all about what your collective is.
Sure.
And Indiana had one hell of a collective, and we both know who he is.
Yeah. Well, Indiana has a very large alumni base.
Yeah. And one guy in particular.
Yeah. But Mark Cuban is who you're talking about.
Yeah. So,
and I don't even know if he's like the richest of the rich guys that they have that you're talking. I mean, they have other dudes.
He's a billionaire. That's as rich as you can get for me.
Yeah.
I don't really know.
I mean, they have more of those dudes apparently, though.
Yeah, but you're talking about a guy who headed up a championship NBA team. I mean, you got that kind of guy on your side. Come on, bro. But let's get back to what we were saying. You asked me about the high school kids. I say that they have to go out and get at least 15 high school kids a year to go on top of because you're going to have some development. You're going to have some of these kids that are going to develop into really good football players.
So you're saying like a 60-40 type of deal on what you're doing, maybe?
Maybe 30-70, bro, to be honest with you.
70% from high school?
No, 70% out the portal, 30% out of high school.
Oh, I was going the other way because I know that the way that Georgia wants to do it, and I know that Alabama had been that way, and I feel like most of the teams have been feeling that way. You know, that it's guys that they brought up. Now, this is obviously evolving as we go.
Right.
You're looking at a situation that, you know, the portal's definitely more used now than it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago or whatever, or even a year ago. So, you know, there's
And
only
I'm talking
4,000.
about a rebuilding team now, Jason.
Sure.
I'm talking about. I'm not
Oh, if
talking
you're
about a team that's
rebuilding,
already.
oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm talking about a
of course.
rebuilding team.
Well, even Oklahoma, look, I don't know that in Oklahoma, I don't know that you needed to rebuild this season coming into this season for Oklahoma, right? But you
Right.
did in some instances. You needed to go and get some key guys, and they did go heavy in the portal and got rid of some guys that they kind of punted on some developmental kids when it came
Yeah.
to receivers and some of that other stuff
Yeah.
to get guys that could contribute now.
They needed depth.
Right.
You know, and you know that, and we'll get into that when we're talking about, you know, our rankings, because that's something that I kind of want to talk about a little bit, and you know, not just for Oklahoma, but a couple other schools.
Oh no, for
That, you
everybody.
know, so yeah, I just think when you rebuilding, Jason, I think you like a Florida, a Auburn, but Jason, let me ask you this: I don't think there's a whole lot of kids out there in that portal that can just what everybody can go just rebuild their team. I mean, I know there's a lot of kids out there,
Okay.
but what's the level of talent that's left in the portal? When you got 6 teams, you had Penn State, you had uh, Virginia, you had Florida, you had Auburn, you had all these big time teams trying to rebuild their team at the portal. I just don't think it was enough quality kids in there to do that. So yeah, you had to go get some high school kids. You
Mhm.
had to go get some junior college kids.
Well, yeah. I mean, and junior college kids are portal kids too, so I get that. But no matter where you look at it, I mean, there's only so many kids that are out there. So what you were talking about, identifying talent wherever you find it, and you need and getting value for the talent that you get too, because you know, just talking from the angle of, I remember hearing Jim Nagy talking about it, that if Rivals in 247 has a kid ranked as a 5-star, and they have another kid ranked as a 3-star, but by their evaluation, they see him as the same as they see the 5-star kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he's a 3-star for Rivals. That's value that you can get and not having to pay him like a 5-star.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And that's what I think Indiana did. Some kids just take longer to develop. Go look at your NFL rosters. They're full of guys who was no stars out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the best guys that ever played the game were like that. So some people, some of these kids' development does not come until the 3rd and 4th year. They don't really. I mean, they really don't peak. Let me say it like that. They really don't peak until their 3rd and 4th year. Well, some of these other kids peak real early. You understand what I'm saying? So if I go get this kid late bloomer, if that's what you want to call him, if I go get this late bloomer and I fill my roster with these kids that are 22, that's already graduated college, that
Played a lot of
most of them are in
football.
grad school, played a whole lot of football, understand the game, not worried about going to the clubs. They worried about, hey, look, if we can go get solid and win, I get a chance to go to the league. You know, so an 18-year-old going into college has a different mindset from a 23-year-old.
Okay. Agreed.
And I just think being focused, because if you listen to them talk, they don't practice that much, Jason.
They spend a lot of time in the film room, and then
They spend a
they have
lot of
hour,
time in
hour
the
and a half
field.
practices, and they're good.
Yeah, when some schools they go all day.
I know. I do know.
But you know,
they use up that weekly allotment.
Hey, every dime of it, bro.
Every
But
last second.
and I know anybody from the Big 10 or the Big 12 hearing this, there they go with that SEC crap. But here's the deal: this team that just won was built the way Saban built his teams, with experienced guys playing that game. That's what he did. Now he might have a exceptional talented guy out there that might be a freshman or sophomore.
Sure.
But we know how Saban won.
Well, they had that. They had that at Miami too. If you look at Malachi, true freshman, 17 years old still.
Dog.
What a dog, bro.
Dog.
Again, hey man, look, and
he can play.
He can play, bro. He can play. And imagine, I mean, he's definitely going to play 3 years and he's going to be in the league. You know, Jeremiah Smith's another guy that when you think about guys like Malachi, Cam Coleman, Jeremiah Smith, you know, obviously Ryan Williams type. Ryan didn't have the same season as a second year player that he did as a freshman, but the talent wise, they're on another level.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys are always going to be there, right? And that's one of the things is you part of that blueprint that we talked about has always been that explosive guy. You know, it's not enough just to have a bunch of dudes that are workmanlike, and you need those, but you got to have them all, right? And if you go back and you think about Alabama and the Bama teams that Nick Saban built, yeah, he was able to stack them 3 and 4 deep. Now, obviously, he had to evolve with all this stuff too, but you know, they weren't as dominant because they weren't as deep. I think that's the biggest difference. One of the things that I think, you know, I wanted to bring this up. I hate it when they start. I don't like doing a bunch of comparisons, right? Comparing one team to 1 year to the next and stuff like that.
I've been hearing it all week about the comparison to LSU.
Stop it. You know what I mean? Like, stop it. Because if we're talking about that, I mean, look, the difference is the 2019 LSU NIL was in. I mean, what that wasn't even. It hadn't even started yet.
That was Bagman money.
Yeah, it's Bagman time, right? Because I remember, when they won the Natty, remember?
I remember that. Somebody got in trouble for that day. Yeah.
Right. But people were freaking out. You know, he's like,
was it Beckham? Odell Beckham?
Odell. It was Odell. Yeah. And so you know it. But it's a different time. But they were. I mean, and you want to talk about that team that Coach O put together down there. That not just the team, but the coaching staff. But they were 3 deep. I mean, you had basically the 2 best receivers in the NFL right now were together there at that time.
How old was the quarterback?
The quarterback was 23, 24 years old. You know, he'd spent a few years obviously a couple years at Ohio State. Then he came and played a couple of years for LSU. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, and not only that, look at the defense. They also had, you know, they had amazing running backs. They had amazing defensive players. That was back the last time that they really had a really good defense, because since Coach O left, the defense had struggled under Brian Kelly up until this last year. They looked a lot better. Obviously, last season it was the offense that let them down. But what I'm saying is that you can't. If we're going to start making I don't like doing comparisons like that over periods of time, even that close, because it's not the same football game. They were able to stack that talent, and LSU would have blown Indiana out just for the simple fact that they're going to get you 3, 4 deep. And one thing that I've been saying this all year, and the depth along the defensive lines for both. Look at Miami. Ruben Bain and the other kid, the other down lineman, they played every damn snap almost.
Well, Jason, I'm gonna tell you this. Now, you just said something that I'm gonna agree with you partially with.
Go ahead.
They would have LSU. I feel like LSU would have beaten Indiana.
Yeah,
but I don't think they'd have beat the brakes off of them.
And they beat the brakes off of really good SEC teams back then in that day, and like Clemson and everybody else too.
I say that game would have been because they had offense, man. They could score.
Yeah,
they had offense. They could
Look
score.
at what they did to Georgia in the conference championship game that year, though.
Oh yeah, they beat the hell out of them. I don't
Look
know,
what they
man.
did to Clemson.
That would have been. You
remember they did to Oklahoma? They beat the brakes off of OU.
Hey, you remember back in the day when they used to take those championship teams from one era and the other one from another, and they used to play them like during the Super Bowl? I wish they could do that with that team right there. You remember those old commercials?
I'd love it too. Because if you go back, if you're going to start doing that, then you go back to like 2013 Alabama. There's a number of years that you could probably pick out for the Bama guys, and I'll let the Bama people pick their favorite. I think of the 2013 team, and I'm like, oh man, they were legit, right?
They were good.
They were damn good. The 2020 Bama team, damn good as well, right?
Really good.
But then you go back and you look at Tim Tebow and the Florida Gators, the 2009 Gators. Those dudes were nasty. You know, they were talking Aaron Hernandez and Percy Harvin and You know, I mean, these dudes
shit,
were legit,
them
right?
some real convicts, man. The priests and the convicts.
Yeah, listen, I get it, and yeah, you had the Pouncey brothers, the Pouncey twins, and all that. I mean, these
Oh
guys
yeah,
they were all professionals, so these guys were all pros and all pros. You
yeah,
know, so
yeah.
aside from obviously Tebow, but I would tell you, you know, you go back and you think about some of these teams we're talking about. 01 Miami, Nebraska,
Oh,
1995, bro. Those were programs that they're going to beat you in their top 33. So as much as I like this Indiana team, and look, I get it. They don't have a bunch of 4 and 5 stars. They're developed and they're older dudes, and I get it but I don't think that just the waves of dudes that they can send at you from these other teams from the past would hurt them. I don't like making the comparison, and it's not shade towards Indiana. It's saying that we're in a different era now. The reason that Indiana is able to win a national championship at all is because it's not the same as it used to be.
not the same era. I mean, you had, the LSU team, man. You had superstars on there.
Yeah,
How many first rounders you think is going to be on Indiana's team?
one.
How many first rounders did LSU have?
Oh, they had what, 4?
Several.
Yeah, I think
You
it was
see what I'm
4 of
saying?
them, 4 or 5 of them. Yeah,
Right. So I think the only first rounder they have on their team is the quarterback,
the quarterback,
Fernando.
and that, yeah. I mean, I love Polk, the defensive back, dude. Oh,
Yeah.
dude, bro. But he's a second or third round guy. He's not very big, right?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So Indiana, because of what they did
Yeah,
and how they did it, you will have a lot of guys on that team getting a shot, Jason.
yeah.
But it won't be like Miami had
I think the
10 or
Miami
12
team
first
now
rounders.
will have more guys in the league than Indiana will.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, you
So
got 3 guys on that team be first round. I know they should have at least 3 to 4 first rounders
yeah,
on
I
that
agree.
team.
Yeah,
Yeah,
agreed. I mean,
Indiana
we're
gonna
not even
have
talking about their offensive linemen are monsters. 6'5", 6'7", 6'7".
6'9".
Yeah, monsters. And I mean, those are dudes that go in the first round. They didn't have those dudes at Indiana.
Nah,
They
they
don't have
didn't
them.
have
And
those guys.
again, this is why it's kind of weird that wow. And it's why you have to look at this team from Indiana and say, wow, because they've turned the recruiting model that we know onto its head.
Yeah, sure.
If though, if you can see them continue, if you can see somebody else do that, if Indiana's the only team like that, because you got to compare them. We talked about this before. You got to compare them where they recruit at. Like they have the number 70 talent roster. So if you look at 16, 7, that's like Kansas. What was it? Kansas. There's some other teams in that
yeah.
Houston, Iowa. So if that's what we're talking about, we're gonna have to start seeing those teams do the same thing before we know that this wasn't just. I mean, it's an anomaly for now. It's amazing. It's a great story, but I don't think that it's completely changed everything just yet as far as how you recruit. But it could. It could.
Yeah, it could. Well, I tell you what, man. Like I said, that's pretty much it in a nutshell with that, man. Because they laid the blueprint out, and everybody's
Look,
gonna
they
try to
looked like
follow
the
it.
SEC. They built
Yeah.
them like an SEC team. They looked like an SEC team. They didn't live in the SEC. They lived in a different conference altogether, to where they weren't challenged as much, which may have something to do with it also. But I think you said it the other day. It's not the first 11; it's the next 11.
Yep. Every time, man. Yeah. Like I say, man, let's look at it, man. Let's look at see what the SEC is going to look like. What we think it's going to look like coming up.
Right. All right, we're going to get out of this, and we'll get back. And make sure that you guys get over and check us out on Sunday. Our first live stream on the SEC Gauntlet will be out on Sunday.
Oh, yes, sir.
7 p.m. Central Time. That's 8 Eastern. Make sure you guys check us out. We've got a few guests that are going to join us from different SEC programs around the country. We'll be talking about some of this stuff, the portal stuff, portal winners and losers, which we're going to get into in a little bit as well.
Big time.
What we'll get into right after this commercial break, we'll be getting into our 2026 post-portal SEC power rankings. what Big Cuz thinks, what I think. Maybe we'll have some differences, and we'll kind of talk it out right after this.